Record. Okay, great. Okay, so this is an awesome piece. It's a Sfas Emes. So it's really packed with sources, but it's so awesome, and I'm like a little obsessed with two aspects right now, which are really important things in Judaism. So I guess it's good to be obsessed with them. But I'm reading this book by Rav Shimshon Pincus about Shabbos, and I like read one chapter every Shabbos, and there's this whole idea that like we don't necessarily know how to properly take advantage of Shabbos, but Shabbos is like the key to everything, right? Along with Tefillah, right? Tefillah is like the other thing. So this piece actually talks about both of those things, both of those inyanim, and let's just delve right in because otherwise it's actually gonna take us a while. Okay, so on your sheet, the first thing is I want to read those few psukim from the parsha. Okay, we're in Parshas Kitavo or Kisavo, and the very opening of the parsha begins with the mitzvah of bikurim. Okay, there's like a whole the whole chapter, chapter Kafvav in Dvarim is all dedicated to this idea of bikurim. There's this whole ceremony. You know, when you come into the land, you're gonna plant your crops, and then you're going to take of the first fruits, and you're going to go to the Beis Hamikdash, and you're going to come to the Kohen, and there's like a set script that you say, like Arami Oved Avi, that whole thing, and basically it's a recognition that I'm fulfilling this mitzvah of bringing bikurim to the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, and then you get to Pasuk Tes Zayin, which is the first one on your sheet. Okay, and it says, okay, after you've done all of that, okay, after you basically say this whole formulaic thing, okay, and then it says, Hayom hazeh, Hashem Elokecha mitzavcha la'asos es hachukim ha'ele ve'es hamishpatim, right? Hashem, on this day, Hashem your God commands you to perform these, chukim and mishpatim, okay, so statutes and laws, Art Scroll translates it. V'shamarta v'asita otam b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha, right? And you shall observe and perform them with all your heart and with all your soul. Es Hashem ha'amarta hayom lihiyot lecha le'elokim. You have distinguished Hashem today to be a God for you. V'lalechet b'drachav v'lishmor chukav u'mitzvotav u'mishpatav v'lishmoa b'kolo. And I love this pasuk, and to walk in his ways and to observe his chukim, mishpatim, and mitzvot, and mitzvot, and to listen to his voice. So beautiful. And two more. V'Hashem ha'emircha hayom lihiyot lo la'am segula. And Hashem has distinguished you today to be for him a treasured people. I love that. Am segula. I spoke about that at my brother's wedding, and it still stays with me. Ka'asher diber lach v'lishmor kol mitzvotav. The way that he has spoken to you, and by observing his mitzvot, right?
These psukim are very Tehillim-like.
They are. Yeah, they really are.
You don't necessarily expect them from the shot, from Chumash.
Right. I mean, Dvarim has that tone because it's from Moshe Rabbeinu, really.
Right.
I mean, it's from Hashem, but it's from Moshe Rabbeinu. So it has that same, we're calling out to you, Hashem, kind of tone, right? V'letitcha elyon al kol hagoyim, and to make you supreme over all the nations, asher asa letihila u'leshem u'tiferes, for praise, for renown, for splendor, lioscha am kadosh laHashem elokecha ka'asher diber, and to be a holy people to Hashem your God as he spoke. Okay, so all the things of how do you become an am segula? How do you become a am kadosh? By doing these mitzvot. Okay, so that's the backdrop.
This is talking specifically about bikurim.
This is talking specifically about bikurim, but there's a lot of, in Dvarim in particular, you get a lot of every mitzvah is sort of like it's just like every bite of an apple represents the whole apple. Every mitzvah ki'ilu represents the whole Torah, okay? Mm-hmm. And when you take time to do every mitzvah, each mitzvah stands alone, and each one really represents the whole, it's it's not a puzzle. I mean, it is on one level, right? It's not a puzzle though that one piece is nothing on its own. It's one piece is still representative of the whole. That's why, like, the whole thing with, like, the Bachrim putting tefillin on people, that at the beginning, like, the whole frum world went crazy. Like, you're putting tefillin on people that haven't said Shema and haven't, or I guess you say Shema when you put it on people, they haven't washed their hands, and they haven't, whatever, maybe they ate something treif for breakfast this morning. So how do you put tefillin on such a person that's not doing any other mitzvah? And the Rebbe was really very, very strong to say that every mitzvah stands on its own and every Jewish soul deserves to perform every mitzvah. And, obviously there are halachas and the way you're supposed to do it, but like we're in kind of a time of, trauma. And like when you're in an emergency, you don't worry about like, is the water clean enough to put out the fire? Well,
right.
You know what? Just put out the fire and then worry about the,
Right.
Okay. So jump down to the Sfas Emes, okay? Because we're basically going to work off of that. And then, okay. But then he talks about the Midrash, which is the source above that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So by Midrash Tanchuma, okay? So that's the source that you have up there. It talks about Hayom Hazeh, okay? And that's the pasuk, right? Hi, good morning. So Hayom Hazeh, this day. Okay, so switch over to the Midrash for a second, okay? And we'll read it. The Hebrew's not so hard. And you have the English right up there. Here's a sheet for you. Okay. Hayom hazeh Hashem Elokecha mitzavcha hayom. Right? That's the pasuk that we just did. Right? The Hashem, your God, commands you on this day. Zeh she'amar hakasuv. This is what it's talking about when it's written in Tehillim. Bo nishtachaveh v'nichra'a nivracha lifnei Hashem osenu. Okay, that's from Tehillim, right? 95. It's the one that starts l'chu nara nana. Okay, so l'chu nara la Hashem naria l'tzor yishenu. We say it every Shabbos, and then it talks about this idea. Come, let us bow down and kneel. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. And then the Midrash kind of goes off in a little tangent here, which we'll hopefully get back to in the end, but this next sentence is less what we're going to be talking about. It says, Halo kriya bichlal hishtachavya, hishtachavya bichlal kriya. I'm in the middle of the Midrash Tanchuma, the third source. So he says, right, isn't bowing bending and bending bowing? Like, what's the difference? Why does it say nishtachaveh v'nichra'a? Right, it's basically the same thing. Uma Talmud Lomar, nishtachaveh nichra'a nivracha. It says that it's really about like bending down and bowing down in order to be blessed or in order to bless. Okay. Ela tzafa Moshe beruach hakodesh. Right. And this is what it's talking about when it says Moshe Rabbeinu saw in ruach hakodesh v'ra'ah shebeit hamikdash atid lecharev. Bikurim atidin lipasek, right? That Moshe Rabbeinu saw that in the future the Beis Hamikdash would be destroyed, and the Bikurim would stop. Amad v'hitkin liYisrael shehiyu mitpalelin shlosha pa'amim b'chol yom. And so he gave like a takana, right? A law essentially that in the future there would be such a thing as tefillah 3 times every day. And that's actually what it's talking about when it says nishtachaveh v'nichra'ah. Those different, that's a different references to tefillah, like we bow down during tefillah, right? Okay. Lefi shechaviv tefillah lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu mikol ma'asim tovim u'mikol hakorbanos, because prayer is more pleasing to Hashem than all of the ma'asim tovim and all of the korbanos. Okay, that in the future. This is what we're doing, like right now. This is what we're doing, right? And it's very pleasing to Hashem, even more so than the Bikurim, okay? But he's going to go on to say, well, let's read it. Okay, so our main source, Adina, is the Sfas Emes, which is on the bottom, source number 4, I think, right? Okay, so we just basically, he references, there's like 1 million references in here, okay? So I brought some of them and not all of them. Some of them I'll just tell you and some of them are important to read, okay? But basically we're in the first line. It says, B'midrash Tanchuma, Hayom hazeh Hashem, right? That's the pasuk from the Chumash that Hashem commanded us this day. At lasos es hachukim chule, okay? And then he says, then the Midrash brings l'chu nara nana, right? And we just read that. Okay, now here's the Sfas Emes's words ki'ilu on this is the part that he's actually quoting from the Midrash.
Lisa, question here. Bending and bowing? Is that what you're
So
talking
the Midrash's question seems to be bending and bowing. That's not what he's going to focus on. He's going to focus on this concept that tefillah replaced korbanot, okay? But he's going to take it to a whole other place. So nishtachavev nichra'a chule, right? So he's basically condensing the words of the Midrash that we just read. Tzapa Moshe Rabbeinu, alav hashalom, shebikurim atidin lipasek, tiken tefillah, right? That's what we just read, okay? So he saw that are you with me? I'm in the second line of of source 4, right? The second line starts with atidin lipasek tiken tefillah. Yeah. Okay. So that's the part that we read already in the Midrash. That Moshe Rabbeinu saw that bikurim are going to end, korbanot are going to end, and so he put in tefillah. Okay. Now those next bunch of Roshei Tevot all mean the Chiddushei Harim. It basically stands for Adoni, Avi, Zikeni, Morenu, Rabbeinu, Zichrono Likacha. Okay? It's basically, my grandfather, of blessed memory, who was a tzaddik, said, okay? He explained, Perush, Shegam Tfilah hu liten hareshis b'chol yom l'Hashem yisparach kamo bikurim. And hule, ayen sham. And he writes it there, okay? But he's quoting. So what does that mean? I mean, what's the whole idea of bikurim?
You give your first.
Right. You see the first fruits and you feel grateful. You feel gratitude to Hashem. It sparks like you're, oh my gosh, these, we had figs this year for the first time that were like actually edible. And like when you see, I'm constantly amazed. Fruit trees are like something that I really think are like such a clear, visible example of Hashem's godliness in this world. Like there's nothing. Then there's leaves, then there's flower, and then there's fruit. Like, it's so crazy. It comes out and they start so tiny, and then they grow bigger, and they get juicy, and they all taste different. That's the other thing, right? It's not like every tree has every kind of fruit. It's like this one's an orange tree, and this one's a fig tree. It's like, it's so visually stunning.
And the fact that you can like sustain yourself.
Yes.
It's a crazy thing.
Yeah. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
So he says, like, when you see that, it like opens up something in you, and you're like, Baruch Hashem, right? And so that's actually what the whole point of tefillah is as well, right? When we wake up first thing in the morning, so first, right? Every day you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you're supposed to say? Moda'ani, right? That the very first, the reishis hayom, not just the reishis of the bikurim, right? But your firstness. Ki'ilu, like you're dedicating your first few breaths to Hashem, or your first few minutes, or even, hour, like the first, like if you get up and the very first thing you do, after like taking care of your, whatever, first thing you do is say Moda'ani, but then let's say after taking care of your bodily needs, you say Asher Yatzar, right? And then you come down and, there are some mornings I'll admit that I have my coffee first and then say my morning brachot. And then there are other mornings that I'm able to like say my morning brachot and then have my coffee, right? But like either way, it's like it's like Bezrat Hashem, right? When a person makes the first little period of their day be about serving Hashem, so they're doing it's the same action, it's the same energy as bringing the Bikurim to the Beis HaMikdash, right? Now, here's the one thing though, is that obviously not everything is the reishis of the Yom, right? Like Mincha is not the first, and Mariv is also not the first, but we had a shir on Mincha a couple of years ago, and it was last year, I think, and we talked about how the idea is the same though, right? Because Mincha, I think Davka, out of all of them even, is harder because you're like taking time out of the middle of your day. You're being like, okay, stop world. I'm going to go talk to Hashem now, right? And you're basically still, reishis could mean prioritizing, right? So you're prioritizing this relationship with Hashem, and that's the same concept as the Bikurim. So it's like our modern day version of the Bikurim comes out every time we set aside the world and take a few minutes to daven to Hashem, whether it's Shacharit, Mincha, or Mariv, or Tehillim, or any of that, right? It's like I set aside the world for a few minutes, I focus on Hashem.
I think it's interesting that the Midrash Tanhuma says that tefillah is more precious to Kadosh Baruch Hu than the karbanot, because I feel like we're davening for this Beis HaMikdash, and we're davening to do the karbanot. But he's saying that like now is what we're giving Hashem is the most precious.
So it is interesting because there's a whole famous story.
In a way.
Right, rethink of
Right,
it that way.
right.
But he's saying it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Midrash is saying it's not.
Mm.
And Moshe Rabbeinu saw that it wasn't going to
It's like
be.
making us feel better, right?
So, but
Because
it's interesting because a lot of people
Yeah.
think that people brought the korbanot and they didn't say anything. But by the time of by Sheni, there were, I mean, first of all, the Bikurim, there is a whole, I think Dafka, it's interesting that he writes it about the Bikurim. He's not writing it about a different korban, but I mean, it applies to all the korbanot, but the Bikurim does have this whole thing that you say, and it's not just, I put my first fruits and I walk out. There's like a whole script that you say, you shall call out and say, oh wait, first you say, you come to the Kohen and you say, I declare today to Hashem, your God, that I have come to, it's interesting, it says Elokecha, that I have come to the land that Hashem swore to our forefathers to give us. And then you give him the basket of fruit. And then he puts it on the altar and then you say, an Aramaean would have destroyed my father and he descended to Egypt, and you go into this whole like Jewish history dialogue, right? So there is something that we say. So I don't know. And in a way it does make us feel better, but I don't think it's like there were words that we had to say. And on top of that, I'll just throw out there that there's a beautiful Gemara that the Baal Shem Tov used to talk about, that says that this like big, big wealthy Gvir came with like a big fat ox to the Beis Hamikdash, and I forgot what Masechta it's in, but like it's very famous that he couldn't get the ox to walk up the ramp. That like the ox just didn't want to. Like he knew what was going to happen or whatever it was. He didn't want to, and he wouldn't budge. And like people are pushing and pulling and whatever. Right. And then the Gemara tells that how this man, a poor man, like picked some herbs in the field, and that's what he was bringing up as a korban. And he saw this ox that would move, and he held the herbs, the fragrant herbs, in front of the ox, and the ox started following the herbs. And this poor man got the ox to go up the ramp. And then the Gvir was like, oh, very grateful, thank you so much. And then he had this big party for his family because that's what the korban, that was the type of korban that it was, where they would all partake in it, right? And that night he had a dream that Hashem basically said to him in this dream, the herbs of that poor man are more precious to me than your ox, because there was more intention. And the Baal Shem Tov, he used to go around telling the story, and he would say, Rachmana libabo, that Hashem wants your heart, that Hashem wants your intention, much more than he wants your big fat ox, right? If you bring a big fat ox with no intention, with no love, with no kavanah, right? Then it's worth much less to Hashem, or it's worthless to Hashem, as opposed to one very sincere prayer, or one leaf that, comes with a sincere prayer, like challahs in the Aron Kodesh, right? That one. Bagels from Benny. Uh-huh.
Right. Also, though, like I can imagine, like in a way, tefillah.
No, there's nobody on here.
Oh,
I'm recording, I'm videoing,
okay.
and
Okay,
I'm doing
really,
it so that.
I really feel it that you're here.
Yeah,
Really
yeah, it's much better.
No, just that. Yeah, I can imagine also that with tefillah, like there's more. You have to put more effort because you don't have that very physical thing to
Right.
kind of assist you in.
It's so hard.
Yeah, it's a lot harder. So I can imagine, meaning like because there's like so much more effort in a way that needs to be put in your tefillah. It's the only reason why I could think that tefillah will be more powerful.
I agree. No, but I think that's it. I think you hit the nail on the head. Absolutely. What Hashem wants our ratzon to have a connection to Him.
Yeah.
And it was
Right,
very
that's the whole
physical.
point.
The based on the korbanot, why are we like, we're kind of chalishing for them, because they're so physical, and it's almost easier. We all want that red string to turn white. We all want to see that because we're such physical people. That's actually what this whole thing is about, being physical people, and yet being able to see ruchnius and being able to sort of dig so deep within the physicality that we live in and find that nikuda of connection to Hashem. Let's keep on going because he says that so beautifully. No, don't be sorry. I love this. Okay, so he said, so he says it's the reishis v'chol yom l'Hashem yisparach kamo bikurim. Okay, but the connection to the words l'hayom hazeh need more explanation, okay? Because what is Hayom Hazeh, right? That's how the pasuk says. The pasuk says, Hayom Hazeh Hashem Elokecha mitzavcha la'asos es hachukim. Okay, so we understand the la'asos es hachukim, right? We want to do the chukim. We want to make part of our, we want to do what Hashem wants from us every day, because that's how we make a connection to Him. But why particularly do the words Hayom Hazeh make this so powerful? B'midrash u'b'Rashi. Okay, so now let's look on your sheet. Source number 2 is the Rashi. Okay, it's from the same midrash. The midrash is very, very long. This was just a tiny piece of it. But Rashi quotes another very, very important line. So look at source number 2. He says, Hayom hazeh Hashem Elokecha mitzavcha, right? Okay. B'chol yom yiyu be'einecha chadashim. That every single day should be in your eyes new, right? Ke'ilu bo bayom nitztaveta alehem. That Hashem commanded you this mitzvah today. And it's very interesting that these are the words that Moshe Rabbeinu is using in Devarim. He says, Hayom hazeh Hashem Elokecha mitzavcha la'asos, right? But it wasn't that day. Moshe Rabbeinu is speaking in the 40th year. They've had these mitzvot. This mitzvah of Bikurim was from, Har Sinai. So they've known it. It's not today. They're not learning it for the first time today. So why does he say Hayom hazeh? So Rashi says it's bringing out the inyan, and Rashi's quoting the Midrash. It's bringing out the inyan that each day the mitzvot should be new in your eyes, as if Hashem is commanding you them today. Okay, how do you do that? Okay, so he says, okay, so that's a quote from Rashi, right? Haviyu hayom hazeh v'chol yom yeh beinecha kechadashim. Okay, so that's all Rashi. So we're on the third line, that almost towards the end of the line where it says v'ki haratzon. Okay, v'ki haratzon lehataot lahadam af shebe'emet eino hitchadshus chas v'shalom. Okay, so now he says it's like a weird word construction, but he basically means that we're not chas v'shalom trying to deceive anyone to make something new that is not new, right? Like regifting, okay? We're not trying to say that, okay? Lahavdil, there is an inyan that actually this can be made like new. How? Ach b'koach ha'adam l'chadesh kol davar. We have the power to renew things, to find hitchadshut in them. Ki vadai yesh b'chinas hitchadshus b'chol davar, because of course there is this level of hischadshus, of renewability, okay, in everything. Sheharei HaKadosh Baruch Hu mechadesh b'chol yom tamid maaseh bereshit. Right? That's from we say that in the siddur, yeah. HaMechadesh b'tuvo b'chol yom tavid, b'chol yom tamid, right? So that and the Chidush HaYarim is actually explaining this. He says, B'Perush tamid b'chol rega, which means in every single moment, right? And this is what the Baal Shem Tov brought down, that every single moment Hashem is recreating the world. Every single second, every single minute. So
perfect for today, first day of school.
Right. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
It's amazing. So if Hashem is recreating the world every single second, that means that every single second, everything is new. Right? It's not just stam a nice idea. It literally is happening as we speak. So everything has the power of hischadshus because it is literally being renewed every single second.
I feel that also before Rosh Hashanah, it's strongest.
Right, and that's when we read this parsha. Right, so he's definitely tapping into that, knowing that we're in Elul and we're about to come to Rosh Hashanah. Right, also Rosh Chodesh. Right, the most beautiful pshat idea of Rosh Chodesh is that it's Rosh Chadash. Right, that it's like a renewal. Every single month is a renewal. You have a renewal of different energy, a renewal of sort of chances, kilu, right? Like there's so much stuff that, like the fact that we call a chodesh, the word for chodesh and chadash is exactly the same word. So there's a kesher there. V'gam ki halo en davar bilti chayus Hashem yisparach v'hanekuda shimimenu, I think it's tavo leolam. Okay, V'gam ki halo en davar bilti chayus Hashem yisparach. Right, there is not a single thing in this world that doesn't receive its chayus from Hashem, its life force, constantly from Hashem. V'hanekuda shemimenu tavo leolam lo yityashen Ki dvarav chaim v'nov'in tamid. And that nikuda, that place where Hashem is giving the thing its chayas, never gets old because his words are constantly flowing, right? Nov'in means flowing. So they're nov'in tamid, they're constantly flowing. There's a constant flow of life into every single object. Ach, ki hachoshech yichaseh eretz haklipa, chitzonius hi hamesateres nikuda hanovad. But we live in a dark world, right? The darkness of the gashmius, of the physicality, hides that nikuda, that flowing point, right? We don't see that. We don't see Hashem. You know, we talked about this in Benos Machshava Tova when the Alter Rebbe was dying, and he saw, you know, the words, right? We say Hashem creates the world with words, right? That was how he first created the world. And he continues with his words to enliven the world. And that when the Alter Rebbe was on his deathbed, he saw that the beam in the ceiling said, it was like he saw just the word in the shape of the beam, like the words over and over and over again in the shape of the beam. Yeah, like the Matrix, right? Matrix, exactly. There's so much Chassidus in the Matrix, it's crazy, right? Lahavdil, right? But that's the whole idea. And I mean, I mentioned this once before, that like in my, you know, high school chemistry class, I could not get that. I couldn't break that into my head, that like, actually that is, chemically speaking, that is what's happening. This chair is made out of atoms that are constantly, right? I can't see them because they're too close together and they're too small, and my eyes aren't built for that, right? But that's exactly what's happening with the words of Hashem. The Dvar Hashem is constantly creating this, and if I could see it, that's what I would see. I would see the Nikudan, Nikudan Hanovat, that flowing point. What?
It's a beautiful word.
Is it beautiful, right? Okay, but this world is a world of klipa. It's a world of, klipa literally means shell, right? What we see is the shell of everything, just the outside, you know, covering. Dikasuv en kol chadash tachas hashemesh, right? Koheles says there's nothing new under the sun. Vehi hateva ve'olam hazeh shemastir hahischadshus. But that's referring to the nature and this like the hiddenness, right? The hidden, the hischadshus, the energy that Hashem is putting into everything is hidden by the physical look of it, by the shell of it. So we can't see it, and that's why Koheles says there's nothing new under the sun. Ach b'koach ha'adam laha'ir hanekuda ha'chashicha, right? But it is within our power to bring out the light, that point of light from the darkness. V'zeh shekatuv hayom hazeh Hashem Elokim Elokecha. That's the pasuk that we're working on from the parsha. That this day Hashem Elokecha mitzavcha lasos. So he says, Perush. This is why it says that. Okay, why? The Perush is limtso b'chinas hayom hazeh shehi hisgalus haor b'chinas aspaklaria de nahura. I want to hear some beautiful wording. This is beautiful wording. It's Bailey would stop barking. Stop. Okay.
It's my daughter's name here, Nahara.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, and I'll tell you after. Yeah.
Oh, Bailey, stop barking. We're at a moment. Okay. Hashem. Okay, so Bailey. Hashem is commanding you, right, to do this day. And the perush of this, right, la'asos, to do this day, is to find the level of hayom hazeh, meaning the level, that level of I'm seeing this for the first time. This is being commanded to me today, right this second, right? It's that level of hischadshus, that level of renewal, that level of feeling this in a new way on every single day. Because that's hisgalus haor. That's the revelation of the light within that object, which is the level of I looked up a beautiful way of translating this, but radiant vision or radiant perception. How's that? Aspaklaria is like seeing things clearly, right? It's like a kilu, like microscope, seeing things through a lens of clarity. And Dinahora is in a way of enlightening, right? Radiance.
How was the heart explained? How's it?
Radiance. That's a beautiful word. That's a beautiful
Because
name.
you can spell with a hey or an aleph at the end.
So because it's the Aramaic version.
Exactly.
Right.
We like the aleph.
Yeah.
But when we went to Israel, they changed it.
Really?
They're like, oh, sorry, that's not a name. They're like, it's for the hey. But now, like all our children's names changed. We made out, yeah, but
That's so funny.
we've gone back to aleph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my daughter's name is Shayna Esther.
Mm.
And they also like, they were like Shayna with an Al, and I was like, no, that means like sleep. I'm not making it's a Yiddish name. It's not a Hebrew name. I recognize that. Fine, spell.
So funny.
They also wanted to spell our last name with a gimel with a chupchik, and our whole married life, it's spelled with a J in English.
Right,
So
right.
we always have to contend with people calling us Judelman, right? It's
Right.
Judelman.
Yes.
It's just pronounced whatever. It's the way they used to write it in South
Right.
Africa. Was the J was a yud,
Right.
was a Y sound.
Right.
So we were like so waiting to get here to spell with a yud so that we wouldn't have that anymore. And they wrote like a gimel with a chupchik.
And you changed it.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah. They didn't want to even put an I in an eagle because that's also the Yiddish version. To all the time they say, no, you're spelling it
Eagle.
wrong.
Right. You know what? You can spell names however you want, right? Okay. Okay, so that was a really important line, right? So we have the power. I'm going to go back up to ach, okay? We have the power. Ach b'koach ha'adam laha'ir ha'nekudah ha'mehachashicha. We have this power to bring out this point of light from the darkness, and that's what it's what the Torah means when it says Hayom hazeh Hashem Elokecha mitzavcha la'asot, because we have the power to do things in the level of, or in the mindset of Hayom hazeh. And when we do things in the mindset of Hayom Hazeh, and obviously that's going to come up, that Hayom Hazeh Harat HaOlam, right? Hayom Hazeh, that comes up so much in Rosh Hashanah davening, right? That's this day. So it's not just this day. It's the idea. It's a concept. It's conceptually living a life of Hayom Hazeh. This day is new. This day is special. This day I have, I am a new person, and Hashem is commanding me these commandments today personally, and giving me the koach to fulfill them. And when I live in that way, I megale the or, I release, or I reveal the light that's within all of the la'asots. Okay, so what are the la'asots? So gam tocha ma'aseh mamish shehi hamastir hanekudah hanal, right? Even though the thing that I'm doing might be very physical. So I'm not going to the Beis HaMikdash. I'm not, and even when I'm not like, let's say I'm making breakfast for my children, right? So that's a very physical thing. I can still do it in that level of Hayom Hazeh, because that when I look at it that way, that everything I do, and that's why he's saying the Reishis Hayom, right? When I open my day with the concept that Hashem is commanding me today to serve him, okay? So then everything I do during that day, I have the power to activate that perception. And then I'm not just making breakfast because, for my needy, whiny children. I'm making breakfast for Hashem's children. I'm doing Hashem's children's laundry, right? I'm doing all of these things take on like an added level of Kedusha.
It's like what you say, Shabbos Kodesh,
Right.
when you're making food,
Right.
right?
Like,
Like,
it's the intention. That's what Hashem
Yeah.
is looking for, the intention. And he's giving us that ability. That's the thing, right? Let's keep on going because he brings it out even more. Vehi al yidei mitzvos de kishet kasuv, the katuv, sorry, ner mitzvah, right? So it says in Mishlei that it says ner mitzvah v'torah or, okay? That a mitzvah is like a candle and Torah is like light. And so every mitzvah is like this, and the Me'ah Shiloach has a beautiful, beautiful piece that he makes a connection between searching for chametz, right? That you take a candle, you have to use a candle in a dark room to look for chametz, because a candle can get into places that like a bigger light cannot, right? So you can go behind the bed, or you can go under the bed, and you can like Hilu, like a flashlight, right? So it's a small source of light that can get in places that he can't. So the Me'ah Shiloach says that includes the darkest places of your heart. That Torah can sometimes be overwhelming, but mitzvahs are this small source of light. Mitzvahs are not overwhelming. We just have to do them, right? Like anyone can shake a lulav. Okay, the intention absolutely is a bigger picture. But when you understand that this is a small, this is like, it's a small light source that I am activating in this world when I do this mitzvah. So then that gives you the intention. That gives you the ability to connect to that intention. Do you understand is that right? I'm kind of like talking and like making all these like different connections, but that's what he means over here. Okay, mitzvahs, because mitzvahs are this aspect of ner, of a small source of light that can go anywhere. Shekevan mitzvah hu b'maaseh gashmi v'yesh ba chayus Hashem yisbarach, right? That behatzivui la'asosa, right? So why do we have the mitzvah is a gashmius thing, right? I make a bracha over an apple. I'm eating an apple. Eating is very gashmius. I go to the bathroom. Let's talk about the most gashmius thing in the world, right? Okay. I go to the bathroom and then I come out and I make a bracha over the fact that I went to the bathroom, that my body works properly. Okay. So a mitzvah is on this level of gashmius. Gashmius, we're living we live gashmius lives, right? But they have in them this chayas Hashem yisbarach because Hashem commanded us to do them. So because Hashem commanded us to do them, he is giving these activities his energy, right? And when we do them, we tap into that energy from Hashem and we get energized by it. So cool. Behatzivui la'asosa b'koach ha'adam lihitabek al yada be'or haganuz, right? When we do them, Hashem gives us this koach to lihitabek, right? To cleave to or to stick to through the derech, this mitzvah, in the or haganuz, the hidden light that, right? That was the first light that Hashem created on the first day of creation. When Hashem said, "Let there be light," right? Vayihi or. So that light, we always talk about, Rashi brings down that that's not the light. That's not the sun. The sun wasn't created on the first day, right? So what happened to that light? So Hashem put it away for the time to come, right? It was too powerful. But we have access to it through different aspects, through different things. And this ner mitzvah is one of our, like the whole idea of a ner, a candle. That's why Hanukkah is like so awesome, right? That and Shabbos, that we light Shabbos candles every week. That I heard the coolest thing. I'm sorry, I hope I'm not like getting too far off, right? But like I was telling Lori at the beginning that I'm reading this book called Nefesh Shimshon. It's Rav Shimshon Pincus and his whole explanation on Shabbos and how to tap into Shabbos in a very real way. And there's in the kitchen, I think, if you want, how to tap into Shabbos in a way that's like we don't even understand the power of Shabbos so much, right? And he's like, so he opens these windows and he says that there's 3 levels of consciousness in the world of Hashem's interaction with the world, right? That all 3 are always happening and we're not always aware of them. But it's basically 3 levels of his name. So Havaya Elokecha or Elokim, Havaya Adonai, Aleph Daled Nun Yud, and Havaya Eheye. Okay, so the Yud Ke Vav Ke and Aleph Daled Nun Yud, Aleph Hey Yud Hey, and Aleph Lamed Hey Vav Mem. Okay, and if you add all of that gematria together, you come up with the gematria of 250, which is the gematria of Ner. So when Hashem is constantly interacting with the world on all of these different levels, and the whole idea is that when we light Shabbos candles, we reveal that, right? At least within our hearts, we reveal that. We give ourselves the koach to see the world that way, that Hashem is ein od milvado, right? That there's nothing besides Hashem. So that's what he's talking about here, that if we call a mitzvah a ner, then a mitzvah also gives us that ability, right? Every time we do a mitzvah, we're tapping into the fact that Hashem is ein od milvado, right? And when we tap into it, when we remind ourselves of it, right? Why is it important for us to learn once a week? At least, right? Together, okay? So we get to learn once a week together because we remind each other of these things, right? unfortunately, the way that our brain and our soul and our, everything works, it's like, maybe like theoretically a different system, right? Someone could tell us this when we're 5, and we could like live like this the rest of our lives, right? But we don't work like that. Like, how many times have you heard these kinds of concepts? A million, right? And yet,
But we need coffee every day.
right?
Right?
We need constant reminding, because in the reminding is the koach, right? Because when we don't remember everything all the time, and when we remind ourselves that we have this power, we activate the power, right? Okay. So every time we do a mitzvah, we connect in this way of light to seeing what's really beneath the surface of the world, and that Hashem is constantly giving everything chayas and life force and light, and that really ein od milvado. There's nothing besides Hashem. Okay, and those things are like as above, as I've written in other places. Okay, okay. V'zeh shekasuv es hachukim. Okay, so that's also part of our original pasuk. Okay, hayom hazeh Hashem elokecha mitzavcha hayom lasos es hachukim. Okay, b'chulei, right, and the rest of the pasuk. Kolomar al yidei hamitzvahs Hashem yisparach noten lecha koach limtzo b'chinas hayom hazeh gam b'maaseh. So through the mitzvahs, he's bringing it back to our pasuk, right? Exactly what we just said. That's why it says that Hashem commanded us on this day for these chukim, right? Because through the mitzvot, Hashem is giving us the power to find the level or the perspective of hayom hazeh. This idea of constant hischadshus, gam b'maaseh, even in physical deeds. Okay, everyone with me? V'hu? It's in here. It's the first word, one line up from the bottom. Okay, second line up from the bottom. V'hu gam b'chinas Shabbos. Okay, and this is also the level of Shabbos. So we have it in mitzvahs, we have it in Shabbos. V'kasuv lasos haShabbat. Right? What do we say about Shabbat? Lasot et haShabbat. Right? We don't say to have Shabbos. Right? We say lasot, to make Shabbos, to do Shabbos. Ki kasuv sheshes yemei hamaaseh yihi sagur. Okay, so this is on your sheets. This is a pasuk in Yechezkel, source number 5. It says, Ko amar Hashem Elokecha, or Hashem Adonai, Sha'ar hachatzer hapnimis, the gate of the inner court, haponek kadim, which faces east, yes sagur, will be closed, sheshes yimei hamaaseh, during the 6 weekdays, ubeyom hashabbat yipateach, and on Shabbos it is open, or will be open. Ubayom hachodesh yipateach, and also on Rosh Chodesh it will be open. Okay, so the gate of the inner court of the Beis Hamikdash, right, which faces east, will be closed on the 6 working days, and it will be opened on on Shabbos. This is like the gate that, you know what? I don't want to. I think it's the gate where people could see sort of further in on Shabbos. So they could see further in on Shabbos and on Rosh Chodesh, but not during the weekdays, like regular people. Okay. So what does he mean by that? So he's going to bring down an explanation from his grandfather. Again, all those Roshei Tevot. Okay. Uperush Adonia Vizikni Morenu Rabbeinu Zichrono Livracha. Okay. The Chiddushei Rim. Haponek Kadim Ke'inyan. The idea of Ponek Kadim is, he's not going to say that it faces east. He's going to say that it's connected to the word pnimius, right? That it's ponen, that it's the inner aspect. And kadim, he's going to connect. Look at the next words in the line. In this concept of shekasav b'nei Yisrael kadmu b'machshava, and that's from the Zohar. That b'nei Yisrael were arose like before the creation of the world. Okay. And it's kadmo b'machshava is like they were before machshava. Okay, so he's going to take those 2 words, haponek kadim, and he's going to say that basically he doesn't have the whole quote here, but he does have a little bit. But I'm just going to do it outside so we understand. So he's quoting his grandfather, Chiddushei Rim, who basically brings out, and this is a point that's going to be very familiar to all of you, that each one of us has holiness inside of us, since the time of before creation, because Am Yisrael have this Chelek Elokami Mal Mamish, and that the whole idea for that, the creation of Am Yisrael, the creation of a people that has this aspect of holiness and this koach of holiness, came about from before creation, and it's inside of all of us. Okay, so that's that Ponek Kadim, that it's inside of all of us since before we were born. That's what he means. Okay, Ponek Kodem or Ponek Kadim is like it's inside of us from before. Okay, even though the pshat is faces east. Okay, so he's saying that it's inside of us from before. Okay, Vahu, as canal, as explained above, Shebeshabes nisgale hamakor v'hashoresh shemisham nimshach tamid chayis chadash l'chol hanivraim. And that is, as above, it's the idea that on Shabbos, the makor, the source and the root of everything, right? That is the godliness that's in it, the life force of Hashem, that on Shabbos that's all revealed. That, okay, right? It's like a very long sentence. I'm trying to right? It's not such a hard concept. It's just a very wordy. It's just hard to explain, right? Okay. He's basically saying that he's proving that on Shabbos we have this opening, right? This opening to our inner aspect, which is the holy part of us, right? That part that is connected to Hashem always. Okay. So every Shabbos there's like a revelation of that. Right? We always say this, right? That we have another neshama on Shabbos, right? An extra access to our neshama. We have a neshama yetera, okay? Means that we have like extra access to our soul on Shabbos. And that's what he's basically saying. He's just proving it with different psukim, okay? Which kind of are making it harder for us to understand, but more sort of official in his Dvar Torah here, okay? I know you guys would have taken what he said without that, but some people wouldn't have, okay? So he's basically saying that, okay? So on Shabbos, there's an opening. There's this revelation of that level of constant energy that we're getting from Hashem, which was with us from before we were born. V'yesh lomar, okay, he's going to do another thing, okay? It's another, these sometimes make it harder, but they add another dimension, okay? Yesh lomar, ken ha-perush, okay, this is a doozy. Metatrin b'nishmatin chadatin. Okay, so look on your source sheet. There's a did I do too much? there's a prayer that we say on Shabbos, okay? It's a prayer in Aramaic. It's that whole paragraph. Okay, I translated. We're not going to try and read the Aramaic, but it's in the Siddur Sfard. And it's in Mariv for Shabbos. And you say you're between Kabbalat Shabbat and Mariv. Okay? So just read the English with me. It's very cool. I'm not going to explain the whole thing, but you'll understand the gist of it. Okay? The mystery of Shabbos is that Shabbos is united with the mystery of the One, so that the mystery of the One can rest upon her. In the evening prayer of Shabbos, the holy throne of glory is made one in the mystery of oneness, and thus made ready for the high and holy King to rest upon it. And when Shabbos enters, the divine presence becomes one and separates herself from the shadow side, and she is released from all her trials and lingers in the oneness of the holy light and adorns herself crown upon crown for the holy King. Okay, that's when there's Yehuda of the Shechina, right? Whatever. There's all these Kabbalistic ideas that there's like during the weekdays, there's this like exile of the Shechina, and on Shabbos she comes back home and she becomes one with the rest of Hashem. Kilu, there's no separation really, but like the whole idea is that there's a oneness, a unity that exists on Shabbos that doesn't exist really during the week as much. All the powers of rage and her accusers flee and pass away from her, and there is no other power in all the worlds but hers. Okay, this is the important part. This is the part that he's quoting. Then her face shines with heavenly light. This is exactly the part, bless you. And the holy nation adorns her here below, while each of its members adorn themselves with new souls. This is how this prayer begins, as they bless her and joy, their faces shining. Okay, so that part where it says they adorn themselves with new souls, that's the proof for what he just said. Okay? And then he says it in Hebrew. Shenitchadesh hachayus shebenishmas b'nei Yisrael. Okay? That every Shabbos we have this renewal of our soul because we get like a new soul on Shabbos. Okay. The Perush, and now he's going to explain it. La'asot haShabbat shetzrichin lahavi b'chinas hischadshus. So to make Shabbos, to do Shabbos, is the idea of bringing that level of hischadshus, as mentioned above, shel haShabbos toch yimei ha'ma'aseh. So we have this aspect on Shabbos of a new soul. We have this aspect of Shabbos on Shabbos of the light, the hidden light being revealed. We have a greater understanding of Hashem's, power and existence in the world on Shabbos. How do we bring that into the weekdays? That's what he's saying here. We have to bring it into the weekdays. How do we bring it into the weekdays? Kamosha Kasuv, Berosh Chodesh Shar HaKadusha, right? That's that quote from above, that on Shabbos and on Rosh Chodesh, the doors are open, okay? Ayen Sham, go see there, okay? Kamosha Kasuv B'makom Acher. And as I've written in other places, Ubayom HaShabbat Yipatach Gam B'yemei HaMa'aseh. So the Shabbos is like a gateway for the rest of the week. We always say that, right? As Shabbos goes, so is going to go like the rest of the week. So if we can hop into this mindset, this energy on Shabbos, then it will sort of automatically seep into the rest of our week. But he's going to give us another idea. Okay, so everything that I said above, okay? So what do we say so far? We said there's a need and a power that we have to renew of renewal every day, okay? We get that power of renewal because Hashem is constantly creating the world. But we can't always tap into knowing that. On Shabbos, we can tap into knowing that more easily. So we have to use the opening of Shabbos in order to enable ourselves to really feel that throughout the rest of the week.
Is that why there's a connection to, like, Shabbos is about the Masa, but not about the Masa? Meaning, like, we have the malachos that we can't do, right? The things that we refrain from,
right? Zachor and Shamor,
right? And it's like interesting though, because it's so much about the Masa, but it's like turning it in the right way, seeing it in the right way,
right, for sure. It's really about recognizing Hashem's Maaseh, right? Maaseh Bereshit,
right?
Okay, and so in His Maaseh Bereshit, we stop Maasein, right? We stop doing the things that will.
And yet it says La'asot et Shabbat.
Right. Because in not doing, we do.
Right.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting wording. Okay. Ukfi ma shehadam mevarer hachayus shebechol davar. When a person looks for the life force that's in everything, ube'enav kechadashim, and with eyes that are like new, meaning when you sort of open the blinds or the curtain, right? You reveal what's behind the curtain and you say like, oh, I've revealed now that Hashem is constantly creating this chair. So then I look at the chair with a different way. I look at the chair with new eyes. Okay, so be'enav kechadashim nitgaleh lo ha'hischadshus be'emet. When I look at it this way, that's when it happens, right? V'zeh shekatuv shamoa beyashan tishma b'chadash. So that's in Brachas. It's on your source sheet. It's a quote from the Gemara. I'm just going to skip to the end of that quote just for time. He says, the Gemara says, if you listen, shamoa, to the old, right, then you will listen, tishma, to the new as well. Meaning, when you hear what I'm saying, you'll be able to see the renewal, okay? When you look at it that way, if you pay attention, basically, then you'll be able to see. Shekfi ma shema'amin sheyesh b'chinas gnuza me'Hashem yisparach, af shenistar mibachutz, when you believe, right, that there is a level of hiddenness, of like hidden light from Hashem, even though in everything, even though it's hidden from the outside, even though what we see is the shell, but when we know that it's there, kach zocheh lihisgalus hapnimius kanal. Then you will be zoche, you will merit to actually see it. So you have to know that it exists, and you have to try to look at it that way. And Shabbos helps, and mitzvahs help, and learning about it helps, because the more you talk about it, the more we think about it. This is everything that B'nai Machshava Tova was basically saying, right? When you get into that mindset of seeing the world that way, that it's not just things, it's things that Hashem is constantly creating. It's Hashem's energy. It's not just b'mikre that things happen to us. Hashem is making them happen to us, right? When we see the world that way, everything takes on a whole other layer of meaning. It takes on a completely different existence. V'ken nishtachave v'nichra'a. And that's the idea of, right from the beginning, the idea of nishtachave v'nichra'a, that we will like sort of bow and bend. And he explains this in such a cool way. Perush hishtachavia, bend, bowing, sherotze lahachnia atzmo, means that a person wants to humble himself. V'nichra'a lashon nif'al. And nichra'a is the lashon of nif'al, of passive, right? He will be bowed. When we bend, we are bowed, meaning shekfi haratzon be'emet, if you have really this desire to live this way, zoche lehizgalus ha'emes, you will merit to this true revelation, liyot nichna be'emes le'amiso, to be bowed, to be sort of, to be bowed, to be humbled to the truth, to Hashem. Meaning it's nifal. It's not like we will bow and we will it's we will bow and we will bend. It's we will bow, and that will cause us to be bowed to Hashem, right? Meaning, Ki'ilu, I'm learning this mimer about Elul, right? What's the most famous Rosh Tevot of Elul? Ani ledodi v'dodi li, right? So there's always this constant battle. And we talked about it last week, in last week's Parsha Shir also. Everybody's in this because it's Elul, right? Okay, these Parshiot are generally read in Elul. So we have it in every Parsha, this concept of Ashuva Elecha, right? Hashivenu Elecha v'Nashuva versus Ashuva Elai v'Shuv Elecha. I can never remember the two psukim, but basically we will return to you and you'll return us versus you will return us and we will return, right? Who makes the first move? And ani ledodi v'dodi li is basically us saying, we're going to make the first move. How do we make the first move? By bowing, right? I want to be connected to you, Hashem. I want to see the world this way, okay? And what he's saying to us here is, nishtachaveh v'nichra'a. If you want to, if you bend yourself to it, then you will see it. You will be nichra'a. You will be bowed. Your vision will be sort of enacted in this way, right? Do you understand? It's causative, right? The more you show your ratzon to be ani ledodi, the more you will be v'dodi li, right? The more I show my ratzon to Hashem that I want to be His, I want to see the world this way, I want to bend myself to His will. So then the more He will help me to be bent to His will.
So it's both.
Right.
So Nichra'a is referring to Hashem towards us.
It's nifal, so it's we will be bent. Ki'ilu, right? Meaning passive. It's a passive tense. So he's saying v'nishtachaveh, meaning you can see it, right? Nun, a nun before the word can be future tense of we will, or it can be the nifal, the passive tense of we are. Right? Like niftach et hadelet. We will open the door. Okay? Or hadelet niftach. The door has been opened or will be opened. Okay? So he's taking the first word, nishtachaveh, and saying that means we will bend ourselves. And then the second one, v'nichra'ah, is that because we bent ourselves, we will be bent to Hashem. And he's saying that as a good thing, right? Meaning I opened my eyes to see Hashem, and so Hashem enabled me to see Him.
Right.
Okay, so I'll give us a bracha. That I know this was hard. It's a hard piece, but I think really it's really not. Essentially, it's talking to something that we already know, right? It's just reminding us of something that we already know. That Hashem gives us these opportunities to see Him, but it's not like He's gonna come down with blazing lights and being like, "Hi, I'm here," right? He's doing that all the time. We just don't always have our eyes, we don't have the right lenses in to see it all the time. And what the Sfas Emes is telling us is that these are the lenses. The lenses are mitzvot, Shabbos, and davening. And through these three things, which are compared to bikurim, like stopping my day and giving the first of myself to Hashem, okay? Like stopping my week and giving a day over to Hashem, and stopping at any time and doing something because Hashem commanded it to be done. Those are all lenses that enable me to then see Hashem's presence in the world. So give us a bracha that we should be able to take advantage of the lenses, that we should put the lenses in, and they should enable us to really see the world, and that it should give us a feeling of connection, a feeling of that Hashem is giving us His love. It's just a matter of being able to open ourselves up to it and feel it. So give us a bracha that we should feel it.
Amen. This is so. Can I go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go for it.
No, it's so relatable.